Hi, and welcome to Living History. My name is Marianne Tashko, and today it's my pleasure to be interviewing Mr. Larry Horner, who has been serving the Conejo Valley for literally 31 years in every capacity imaginable. And currently, he is the area manager for Congressman Brad Sherman. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure being here, and look forward to responding to some of the questions that you might pose to me about my past 31 years in the Conejo Valley.
That's a long time. I'm interested, though, about your recent job. I hear you retired and then called into duty by Congressman Sherman.
Well, I retired from the aerospace a little over 2 years ago after 41 years in it. From my last assignment was with Northrop Corporation. And Congressman Sherman called me and said that you're too young to retire, and besides, he needed some help in the Conejo Valley here since this is part of his congressional district. And since I had a lot of knowledge about activities in the Conejo Valley, he felt that I could be of some value to him in serving on his staff.
What are some of your duties?
Well, my main duties are primarily with the agencies of the federal government overall. Immigration, naturalization, internal revenue, Social Security, and all the agencies that people have problems with in terms of their services. And so I do a lot of the inquiries and casework for him, plus keep him advised on the critical issues in this particular area and how he should view them in terms of any decision he might want to make or support he might want to render the area.
With your background, I'm sure you're a fine resource for him. How long have you been in the Conejo Valley? When did you come here?
Well, our family's been here 31 years, and we came in October 1968 and moved into the Westlake Village area, one of the first residents over there, and certainly we were the first African-American family that moved into the Westlake community. And it was a very lovely community, and we thought it would be just excellent to raise our children in, and things just went on from there. And
I like asking this. How much did, if you don't mind me asking, how much did your home cost in 1968?
In 1968, I believe we paid $38,000 for it, and that was with an air conditioner included in it.
Wow. Well, what was Thousand Oaks and Westlake Village like in 1968?
Very, very lovely semi-rural environment. I believe we had approximately 30,000 people in the Thousand Oaks Westlake area at the time. Things were very upbeat. The city was in the process of growing and planning for future growth, put it that way. And everybody just had a very cordial relationship with one another because we were small and people knew each other from all sectors of the community. And it was just fun and very, very enjoyable to come back home to in the evenings after working in the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles area.
Where did most people come from that moved to this area, do you think?
Well, you had a lot of people that came in from the west section of the San Fernando Valley, Woodland Hills and Tarzan and Sherman Oaks, and then a few that came in from Los Angeles and out of town because we had IBM facility here that transferred people in from other parts of the country and the like. But for the most part, you had the population drawn from the western part of the San Fernando Valley in particular. And they wanted a quiet place and serene.
And you have 3 children.
I have 3 children.
Where did they go to school?
Well,
when they got here?
The oldest daughter went to school at Pepperdine and got her degree in journalism, and she is now an editorial director for Sterling Publications, Sterling McFadden in New York, and she has the responsibility of producing several teen magazines. One is Right On, it's Teen Entertainers. She has interviewed and helped people get started like Prince and Michael Jackson, who's a personal friend of hers, Mariah Carey, who's a very close friend of hers, and Whitney Houston. And so she does feature articles on them and travels around the world and where they have concerts and the like, and does a lot of the write-ups on them. My youngest daughter is a physical therapist aide instructor in the Simi Valley Adult School. She went to Cal Poly, and my son is a quality engineer. He has worked for various aerospace companies, and he lives in the Simi Valley now, and all of his training was technical in nature from technical schools and the like.
Well, they all done very well for themselves.
We're proud of them.
That's good. That's good. When did you decide to run for public office?
Well, that's a very good question. I believe in early 1973, I was president of the local homeowner association in the Westlake area. As a matter of fact, I was the head of the joint homeowners associations. And at that time, the Westlake community was very small, and there was sort of a strained relationship between the people in Westlake and the greater part of Thousand Oaks. And they felt that we needed to get more in the mainstream of the Thousand Oaks municipal activities because we're still all one community. Now, this was before Westlake, part of Westlake became incorporated. A few of the people that were involved in the homeowner association activities over there asked if I would like to consider being a candidate so we could run one from the Westlake area and have representation on the city council from that particular area, knowing that all council members were elected at large anyhow. But they felt that it was time for the Westlake area to have representation on the Thousand Oaks City Council and help bring a closer relationship between the two communities, and since we're all still one entity. I was hesitant about it at first because I never really had an awful lot of interest in municipal government. I followed the national politics very closely and the like because of the job that I had in aerospace. We dealt with the federal government a lot more. But I came from the Midwest, and in my early childhood, I just did not like municipal government that well. The politics, I thought, was just something that I didn't have a taste for. And I told my mother that I had been asked to do this, and she always wanted me to get involved in politics anyhow because she says, you talk so much, you ought to be able to communicate with the people pretty well. And so it wasn't that I talked so much, it was that she used to give her very firm, rigid direction, and I challenged a lot of her requests. So she said I talked a lot and sometimes too much. So she says, you either do that or become a lawyer. And so I said, well, I'm really not that interested in either, and let's let it go at that. When the people suggested that I run for city council, there were, I think, eight of them, and they got together and said, we formed a committee and we're going to run you for city council, and you're our choice, and we think you could do a good job. So I pondered over that and thought about it long and hard and said, do I really want to do this? And I said, it is really flattering for a group of people to come and ask me, so at least I ought to give it some consideration. And I did. So we put together a group, a campaign committee. We kept it very small, and we did a very high-profile campaign in terms of news publicity, signs, and walking precincts and flyers and the like. And quite frankly, I felt that I had a pretty good chance to win, even though I was an unknown in other parts of the city, because I got a lot of feedback. I had a lot of friends all over Thousand Oaks. But I just had a feeling that I had a fairly decent chance of winning. So I went to the newspaper and had my interview with the then editor of the News Chronicle, Marvin Sosna, and he asked me why I wanted to run. And so I said that there are people that have asked me to seriously consider it because they felt that I had good credentials and a message to offer, and I could probably do a fairly decent job up there since I liked working with people and the like. And so his question was, well, how do you think you as an African American could win an election in a conservative community like this, and what would be your campaign? I said, well, let's look at it like this. Being an African American shouldn't make any difference if your objectives and the message that you want to bring to the community is what the people are looking for in terms of representation. And he smiled and he said, that's a good answer. And so I said, that's the only answer that I think is appropriate. And so my daughter was with me, who was then a junior, I believe, at Newbury Park High School. The Westlake High School wasn't built then. And she said, and beside that, she said, he's going to win the race. And so he smiled, and we won. And it was a close race, but we won. And from that standpoint on, we became very well known in the community and started laying the groundwork for helping the community grow in a healthy, progressive fashion, and that was about it.
Well, so you were the first representative from Westlake Village.
From Westlake Village, yes. The first elected member to a city council and the mayor.
Well, you've been reading your background. You've been a man of many firsts. The first African American councilman for the city of Thousand Oaks, and the first African American councilman and mayor in the history of Ventura County.
Yes,
that's
correct.
Very interesting.
Yes, that's correct. I didn't, my family and I never paid any attention to that at all. We just were involved and doing the job that was expected of us. My wife was very instrumental in making inroads in the community because she's a very personable individual and is involved in a lot of clubs and activities, philanthropic and otherwise, in the community, and she was kind of like eyes and ears and was a guiding light for me. She gave me good advice and how people were thinking and what she thought from a female standpoint that would be very appropriate for action to take in the community. Her insight was tremendous, still is, and she still gives me good sound advice and tells me if I'm way off base, and I appreciate that, and I owe so much to her for all of this.
That's great. That's great. Well, so you become a city councilman and eventually mayor, and it begins. And your relationship with the city of Thousand Oaks begins. What do you think is your most memorable memory or event in the city of Thousand Oaks?
Well, first of all, being elected in a community like this. And secondly, having served 4 terms, I was the second longest, I have the second longest tenure in the city as far as being on the council and serving as mayor, second to Alex Fiore, the father of the city from many years back. He was on 30 years, and served as mayor 5 times, and I was on almost 17 years and served as mayor 4 times. To me, that was a tremendous thing for the community to bestow upon me, that opportunity. I was involved in almost every major project that the city undertook over the years, and I was very, very pleased with being able to be on the council and making very sound decisions on the library, both the Thousand Oaks, the Grand Brimhall Library, and the Newbury Park, the Teen Center, the Senior Center, the Oaks Mall, and certainly, last of all, the Civic Arts Plaza here. I had some problems with the Civic Arts Plaza in the very beginning. It was mainly with the way it was financed and the like, and I had some concerns over that because I am a fiscal conservative person, and looking at it from the standpoint of the way we had to look at things in the business, I was a little bit nervous about some things, but it worked out fine, and my final vote on it was to help put it here because it was a very pristine location and would certainly give the people what they really wanted and make the best of it, and it certainly turned out to be very, very, very nice.
And you come in to the performances and...
Right, and of course I've always been very well indoctrinated in the fine arts anyhow, because coming from Indianapolis, we had a lot of performing arts activities there, and I spent a great deal of my life at various performing arts theater programs and operas and operettas and all that. And I majored in music in high school, as a matter of fact, music and math, so I was very well equipped for that anyhow.
If you could describe the city of Thousand Oaks in just a few sentences, can you do that?
It's very difficult to do it in a few sentences, but I'd say it's one of the greatest cities anywhere in the nation. And I'm not saying that because I was involved in the early formation of it, but the mere fact that for 35 years we have just kept building and building and building in a forward-thinking way. In spite of a lot of criticisms that people hear, it's still the greatest city around. I know when we used to go to the League of California Cities back in the late 70s and early 80s, all I could hear from some of the other mayors from cities all the way up from Eureka down to San Diego is, you people have done such a marvelous job there. We're just terribly envious. And I would hope that a lot of people that have recently moved here would take stock of that and appreciate that fact, because somebody had to do it, lay the groundwork for them to even be here. And we were happy to do that for the people that we knew that would be following us. And I hope that it's appreciated. I think it is, for the most part. It is a great city. When you look at the open space, when I first got involved in public life, we only had about 5 acres of open space. I was probably 5,000. That's quite an accomplishment.
Usually goes the other way.
Yeah, right. And our planning and zoning is just outstanding. And our master plan was one of the finest, and many people have emulated the master plan. I have met with people during my time on the council from South Africa and back in the eastern states of the United States. Columbia, Maryland has a community there that was, they're planning and the like kind of patterned after ours. There's a place in one of the South African areas there called Eastgate, I believe, and they came over here and brought a contingent of people to look at our master plan and look at how we laid the community out and how we were able to continue to move forward in a very progressive manner and still maintain a good balance between density and open space and mixture of housing between high density housing and low density housing, and the way in which we apportion out a certain percentage of housing, even though it's a state law, you had to do it, for affordable housing and the like. We can't satisfy everybody in total, but certainly we've done probably a lot better than most cities of this size.
Is there anything that you wish you could change about Thousand Oaks?
Well, I would just like not to change anything, but just to keep what we put in place in the healthiest fashion. Just maintain it and keep it like we wanted to be maintained when we first laid out our plans. And as time goes on, to make the improvements that are necessary to keep in tune with the times. We're almost all built out, so we have a maintenance problem now, and let's keep our streets up and all the other public facilities that we have provided for the community or for the city in a good, wholesome state. And that I hope the people remember the background of the history of the city, how it was conceived, and those that put the effort forward to allow people to be able to live in a comfortable environment that they do live in now and enjoy it to the utmost.
Speaking of those people, and many of which you work with, is there one person that you think had the biggest impact on the city of Thousand Oaks?
No, I can't say one person because this community has always worked in a collective manner. We've built the city and provided all the amenities in the city through various civic groups, and that is probably one of the healthiest things that I think that we have in our favor. So I think that you can't say any one person or any one or two people. It's the collective efforts of everybody that has something to do with the growth and the development of the community as a whole.
I want to find out a little bit more about you,
Okay.
Mr. Horner, and your background. We talked earlier before, and understand that you're a veteran of the Korean War.
Yes.
What was your experience?
Well,
in
that was
war?
an interesting experience. I was slated to go directly to Korea, and at the time that they gave us what they call increment numbers, or boat assignments, they shifted and sent, I think, 150 or 200 of us to Germany. We were scheduled to go to the front because they were really having a big problem in Korea at the time. In September '51, I think we were up to around 40, 50,000 casualties a month or something like that. And they sent us to Europe because the Cold War was not getting any warmer, and they wanted to make sure that we had the troops in Europe shored up enough in case there was another emergency that occurred there. So I was sent directly to Europe and to Germany. And I served in Mannheim and in Munich, two places that had a tremendous impact on my life because I followed World War II very closely, and I was very close to having gone into Europe immediately after World War II, or at the time it was ending. And I was placed into a special services outfit that was maintained by the University of Maryland. We had an on-duty overseas academic training program for officers and enlisted men to complete their high school and college education over there. And so they asked me if I would like to teach math and science in one of those programs, and I did. And I had a lot of experience with teaching an adult educational environment and college level training for those people, those service people. In addition to that, I had a lot of experience in some of the things that were going on in post-war Germany. I saw quite a bit of the Nazi youth groups that were still fairly abundant in the Munich area. And that was kind of interesting because I said, well, the war has been over for a while now, but there were people that never really felt the war ended. And so we had to be constantly on the alert for some of the kind of atrocities that did occur over there at the time. But it was a very good experience. I had, in college, I had 4 years of German, and I took 2 more years of German at the University of Heidelberg while I was over there. So when I left Europe, I spoke fluent German. And I started to change my major. My college graduate courses and that sort of thing were all in the scientific field. And I wanted to change my major, become a linguist, and stay over there and take the Slavic languages in addition to some of the other languages, because I saw the way in which the Eastern European governments were having difficulty and problems and that sort of thing. I said, we will probably end up with some difficulties politically with these nations over there behind the Iron Curtain. And since the Cold War was still there, and I wanted to take the Bulgarian and Romanian languages and the like, and then become a linguist and work perhaps for the CIA over in that area. But I changed my mind.
What changed your mind?
My father changed my mind. He said, you better come on back home and pursue your scientific curriculum. And he wanted me to be a college professor in the field of science, and it was safer, he felt, in that way. I came back, and I really don't regret it, but I still have spent a lot of time overseas since, in China and Japan and Korea and places like that with my aerospace job. So
that's wonderful.
I've
Travel
had a
is
great international experience.
That's great. What has been your greatest life accomplishment?
Well, my greatest life accomplishment, I believe, was the selection of Betty, my wife, to be my spouse. And I think that I can owe almost everything that I've accomplished and achieved as a result of her being my mate. She's had a tremendous influence, good insight, good guidance, very level-headed personality there, and good introspective knowledge, and she's just been my guiding light. I think that's my greatest accomplishment from that standpoint. But from the general social involvement, I think the greatest accomplishment is making inroads in our society that when people look at me as an example of what can be accomplished and who can accomplish it, given the right perseverance and the kind of things that you keep having to look forward to in order to obtain an objective in a very positive way. I think that has probably been one of my greatest accomplishments. I've always been very positive and always looked forward. I don't look back. The past is past, and you have to look toward the future. I've been very lucky, and I'm very thankful for being fortunate to have made contributions and having been accepted as Larry Horner, not as a token this or token that. We never even discussed things like that. And it's kind of interesting because politically, you asked about that a little bit. I can work with anybody. I have a penchant for working with people. I've worked for several Republican representatives. Even though I'm a registered Democrat, I've always worked for whoever I felt had the best set of credentials. And I am not so imbued with a political philosophy that I can't make an adjustment and say, well, this person has much more to offer than this person, even though I have had a history of following this person's party lines over the years. And it's always been my philosophy is that it's the person that has the best set of credentials and offers the most for the majority that is the one that I have a lot of admiration and respect for and try to emulate. And that's my philosophy. So I've worked for all different political personalities. It was kind of interesting because in 1978, I believe I got a call from Barry Goldwater Jr., who was the son of Senator Barry Goldwater from Arizona. And this was his congressional district. It was by reapportionment. Mm-hmm. He called me from Washington one day, just like Congressman Sherman did, and said, and I believe I was mayor at the time, yes, Larry, this Barry, just like I've known him all my life, I didn't know Barry for me, I knew who he was. He said, well, I want to talk to you about running my Conejo Valley Thousand Oaks campaign for me. Well, naturally, I'd never been asked by anybody to ask for that type of assistance. I was flattered. And I said, well, I'm not sure if I can do the job that you want. He said, oh, yeah, I've already made up my mind. And so I'll be out there in another week, and we'll sit down and have lunch and talk about it, and I want you to run my campaign.
And did you?
Yeah. He won bigger by a bigger margin than he ever had before.
You did a great job.
So some people asked him in the Republican Party, and it was kind of interesting. Well, you know, Larry's a registered Democrat. He said, I don't care. And they said, well, you know, that's not like Republicans normally do. He said, I'm looking for the best person for what I need. And that was it. I took care of that. And it was that kind of thing. And I haven't been in touch with him recently, but I met his dad and his mom. His mother is from not too far from where my wife is from in Indiana. She was from Muncie, Indiana. My wife's from Anderson, about 18 miles apart. So we had a lot of philosophical similarities in terms of business and the like. Mm-hmm. The other accomplishment was that not too terribly long ago, when the Reagan Library was built, Blakely and Swartz, who were the property investors at the time, called me and said that, you know, we're going to build this library here between Thousand Oaks and Simi. We're going to need some help from Thousand Oaks because it's between the two cities, and we need some interaction there because it's in the area of influence and the like. We'd like to have this as a smooth project, and we would like some assistance from you in that regard. So I said okay, and we sat down and talked, and so finally the library was agreed upon, and even though it's mostly taken over by the Simi Valley area, Thousand Oaks played a great deal in the making sure that took place. It benefited all of us here, and so I thought that was a real good move. And lastly, believe it or not, and I don't know how many people can remember this, Fiore probably will. In 1988, even though the oak tree was officially our guiding light here, so to speak, we never had an official adoption on record of the oak tree as being the official tree for the city of Thousand Oaks until 1988. And we passed that ordinance as well as the adoption of the flower buckwheat as the official city flower. And I don't think you'll find too many people that'll remember that as the official. And those are all official in the records now. And so a lot of these things happened during the time that I was on the city council and the like, and all of them have kind of earmarked as very significant events that occurred during the period of time that I was on the city council, and I was pleased to be part of it.
Well, you've played such a large part in the history of our community. How do you want history to remember you?
Just as an individual that was that moved here, saw what he liked when he moved here, and wanted to continue to make it one of the best places possible for anybody to move into, to live and enjoy and raise their families. And that's all I'd like to be remembered for, as one that helped that process along.
Well, as we take our first few steps into the new millennium, what are your hopes and dreams for the city of Thousand Oaks in the future?
Well, I hope that we can continue to maintain the image that this is a community for people of all nationalities and all different kinds of ideologies and philosophies, and that when the deal goes down, that the main thing that is our objective is for us to work collectively together and maintain it, keep it as one of the outstanding cities in the nation and probably the world, in my opinion. And I would hope that would continue on, and that the people that pass the baton off to the new arrivals and those that are now getting into the mainstream of the activities of the city will keep that in mind and carry on the tradition in a very wholesome and positive way.
Well, thank you so much for being with us.
Well,
it really has been a pleasure, Mr.
Thank you
Horner.
for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
It really has been an honor talking to you, and I know the city is very grateful for all the fine work you've done.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for being with us.
All right.